Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to another installment of Celebrity Natal Charts. Today, we're going to be looking at the natal chart of David Spade, which is actually really interesting. And I've been like really reluctant to start recording because I was like, I'm going to have to say a lot about this. Because David Spade's birthday is July 22nd, 1964. Um, but there is not really any contention. Like, I think it's actually more understood that July 23rd, I want to say, is like the first day of Leo, which brings up the concept of like cusping, which anytime someone tells me that they're a cusp, I'm like, there's a degree on the chart. Like, you have a sign, you don't get two signs. I get that you might not like your sign, but you are your sign. Um, but even in being so like stringent about it, it's like, different books say different things, especially like September 23rd, like changing into Virgo into Libra. It really is like a cusp because it's like, well, is it this day? Is it that day? If you Google July 22nd, it says that it is the sign of Cancer. Um, and I was like, I just want to talk about that, I guess, because then, like, there's other things like Vedic astrology or the 13th sign system with Orpheus and things like that that might push your sign to one or another. But I think that like for me personally, like, if they come out and there's 14 months, there's 14 zodiac signs, and I'm actually an Aquarius, I could like fight that. I really love being a Pisces, but even knowing about my chart, it's like I got four placements in Aquarius. It's not like they're saying I'm secretly a Sagittarius or like a Gemini or something completely out of left field. Um, so there's that. And then I guess also in this series, I could have chosen somebody whose birthday is more like finite in Leo and not expose any like lack of understanding that I have with the calendar of how the months and the zodiac signs correlate, as I might be wrong. I'll look it up, I guess, before I post this. But so I wanted to say all that about cusping. Cusping's valid. Cusping is real, but it is also not at the same time. Um, and and then there's a whole nother chapter of words I have to say about like the element of celebrity, what it means to be a Leo. Like your reputation and what people think of you. Like, so if you are on the cusp of Cancer and Leo, you don't necessarily want to walk into the astrology party being like, oh, I'm a Cancer, versus like, I'm a big, beautiful, roaring lion. Um, which I think is fair. I think it's like totally fair to lie about your zodiac sign and have like a sense of mystery. And the only, well, out of many reason why I'm doing this video on David Spade, even though he is not confirmed to be actually a Leo and looks like he's actually a Cancer, to talk about all of that. Um, some honorable mention: uh, Leo rising Aries is Princess Margaret, Countess of Snowdon. Louis Daniel Armstrong, which I think it would have been better to do Louis Armstrong. He's like, I guess, more known to be a Leo. But there aren't really a lot of celebrities on, like, most of them people are like politicians and things like that. But I just did Amy Poehler, and he's famous. He's like mega famous. Had that talk show, dated like a supermodel or something at some point, and everyone was saying how ugly he was for dating her. Um, and he's like on commercials and stuff. And I wasn't gonna do it, and I was like, I'm gonna find someone better. And then I got a reading from someone on Reddit who was like July 22nd, a Cancer, and I was like, okay, well, this seems like a sign, so I'm not gonna ignore Bill Engvall. But David Spade, um, was born in Birmingham, Michigan, United States, July 22nd, 1964, at 11:34 p.m. Birth time accuracy excellent, it says, even though it's sort of wrong or whatever. Um, but David Wayne Spade, born July 22nd, 1964, is an American actor, comedian, writer, and television personality. He rose to fame in the 90s as a cast member of Saturday Night Live for co-hosting or co-starring in the 1995 comedy Tommy Boy, and from 1997 until 2003, uh, when he starred in Dennis Finch on Just Shoot Me sitcom. He also starred in CJ Barnes, or starred as CJ Barnes, along with Katie Sagal, James Gardner, and Kelly, last name, on Eight Simple Rules. He starred as Russell Dunbar on the CBS sitcom Rules of Engagement, and also working with TBS on an animated series based on his film Joe Dirt. I don't know if I ever saw the Joe Dirt cartoon, or any of these sitcoms. There's like a ton of movies, um, Grown Ups or Adults or something with Adam Sandler. He had like a show, like sort of like a daily show on Comedy Central. But supposedly has a sun in Leo, 0 degrees in Leo. Supposedly says this website, which is, I think, wrong. And an ascendant in Aries. So the ascendant in Aries, I've always been saying it's like sort of like the diva sign, because it's like Shakira has a rising Aries, Rihanna has a rising Aries, Beyonce has a rising Aries, and he, is like into Led Zeppelin and hair metal bands, has long blonde hair, and kind of very Wayne's World. You know what I mean? And then the year that he's born, 1964, is the year of the wood dragon, or just the dragon in general. So if you are like the type, they probably don't have as much literature on Chinese zodiac signs as they do on Western signs or Vedic signs or whatever. But if you are a person that's like caught in the cusp and you don't really know what your sign is, it might be better, maybe for compatibility, to look at what your uh, lunar or Chinese sign is about. But also see that it has similarities. Like I say in every video, the Chinese zodiac and the Western zodiac, they don't know each other. They're completely different, but I do have like associations, and I do associate the year of the dragon with Aries, as Aries and dragons tend to live very difficult lives, although their zodiac sign is super cool and neat, and badass and everything. Um, so he's a first house in Aries. So it also kind of says to me like how angry he can get or frustrated. Like I said, like a diva sign. Gives him self-esteem. So if he's like, "Oh, I showed that jerk, I raged out on him. I'm great," maybe a trait that comes from his father. Maybe he wanted to be. Maybe his father is angry. But the rising Aries, I would say, is like sort of like a really good positioning because it supercharges everything in your chart because everything is in the right house. So, aging but looks good, has always looked sort of good, well put together, is on television. So probably has people working on his image and appearance. He has a second house in Taurus with also Jupiter, meaning that he's very lucky with finances and resources and wealth. Which the era of time that he was on Saturday Night Live, it was sort of like a springboard into like your own movies. You had Eddie Murphy making movies, Adam Sandler, David Spade, Chris Farley, Chevy Chase. They were just going straight from SNL to like Blockbuster essentially, where I think like making movies and having movies were also more lucrative at that time. With the Jupiter and Taurus, like very lucky. Like nowadays, you might get really popular on TikTok or Instagram or something from being on Saturday Night Live, but it's not really catapulting people into a half AI generated Coming to America 2 film, you know what I mean? Where they're basically like getting pushed out of Airbnb in Africa. I feel that way about that movie. I liked it. I like Eddie Murphy. Anyway, so third house in Gemini for the rising Aries. They're really good at talking, speaking, being connected with Mercury and Hermes Trismegistus, and all those things. He has Venus in Gemini, Mars in Gemini, which says to me that he attracts like a Gemini, is attracted to Geminis. He's very like skinny and small, which is like my association with Gemini. So he's like attracted to those types of people. And then he also has a Mars in Gemini, so he acts like a Gemini. What does that mean? He's very talkative. So if he was like held captive or something, you know, by kidnappers or something, he would like the way that he would fight them is like talking to them to death or telling them jokes so funny that hopefully they would let him free. Uh, or like some type of action movie scenario, real life with David Spade. Is attracted to Geminis, is probably like someone, if even if he's not a schmoozer, probably thinks that is his superpower ability to be charming and witty and smart, which I think he maybe is. Joe Dirt, whatever. But also is just supercharged, really good at talking, communicating. Might be a really good singer too, you never know. No one's ever asked him to. Uh, Maybe he'll do a movie with Jack Black and they're singing. Um, but he's a fourth house in Cancer, which means like very maternal, very caring. I'm sure he misses his friend Chris Farley very much. I'm sure, like, the vapid Gemini sense of like not caring and moving on is just like a defense mechanism for him and his friends, and drugs and the 80s and everything else that was going on then. Probably has a really nice home too. House is probably great. Uh, from all the lucky Taurus Jupiter money that he had from being Saturday Night Live in the 80s and 90s. Um, and then his fifth house is in Leo, where he also has Mercury and his sun as well. So he's the soul of a Leo. He's a leader. He has a lion. He's most certainly not a little crab crawling around on the beach. He has Mercury in Leo, so he talks and sounds like a Leo. Probably demands a lot of attention. Diva sign, rising Aries. Probably talks about his hair a lot. Probably in the picture that they have on Astro Charts. He has like sunglasses and a hat on, protecting his hair. The fifth house also talks about like distractions and limitations in your life, which could be like his hair, being blonde, being famous, the cult of celebrity. How famous are you? How famous are the people around you? Which is not like dollars and cents, but like views or blockbuster movie returns. How many people went to go see your movie this month, or like I said, box office returns. So that's his fifth house, getting over that. So how does he, maybe like heal from the damages or limitations of fame, which, uh, with his, I forget who it was, because he had a talk show and he was dating some woman who I think was maybe like an actress or like very famous, and they were like, this is mismatched. But he was famous because like, goes from movies to doing like a daily show, like the soup, uh, type thing where he's like on every day, every night. Which I guess maybe was a limitation, but how he heals that is with the powers of his sixth house, which he has in Virgo. He also has Pluto in Virgo, Uranus in Virgo, which says to me that his career will be like endless and boundless, but he will also work himself to death eventually, or works himself to death. So how does he get over being famous? Working himself to an early grave by possibly doing a podcast or something. Something new with technology and education. So maybe even like teaching like a comedy movie directing master class or something like that. And then so his seventh house naturally is in Libra, which is Aries opposite energy. So if you would like a relationship that's supposedly supposed to like, help you grow and prosper, he should date somebody with a lot of Libra energy. There's not a lot of planets here. But I guess like, Libra would bring him a lot of balance, good Venusian partner. So like business partners, friendships, love affairs. Libras, they lie. Maybe keep his secrets as he's a celebrity. And as we talk about secrets, we have his Scorpio, which is in the eighth house, because that's how astrology goes. And he also has the planet Neptune. So there's a lot of Scorpios and people born with Scorpion energy that helps him get on television. It's his want, wish, and desire to be on TV, to cast illusions, and to be Neptunian and maybe even mischievous and misleading, like in commercials. And I think he's achieved that. He's in ninth house in Sagittarius, meaning he's very smart, probably very well traveled. It doesn't say anything about college education or the groundlings or anybody like that, but I would say he was pretty good on Saturday Night Live. They made him. I think that's like the indication, if like you're intelligent and have like possibly a political future, they'll put you on Weekend Update. And I think he was a Weekend Update anchor for a while. Could be wrong, but he was doing like a Weekend Update show and he was dating that actress that everyone's making fun of him for. He's a 10th house in Capricorn, meaning that it is his destiny to own some type of company or business, maybe production business like Happy Madison, similar to Adam Sandler. But have not recently watched the end credits or the production credits of any of his movies, so I don't know if that's true or not, but it would be, should be, could be. He has a moon in Capricorn too, so his go-to emotion is to get started. I was watching something with him online with some like young YouTube, TikTok type people, and he's like just making jokes about being extremely wealthy and having a lot of money. So, maybe if he's feeling insecure or unconfident or not confident, his go-to emotion is like, I used to make a bunch of movies in the 90s. I'm super rich. I have McLarens. I'm David Spade. Which is kind of interesting because I think in my mind, I think of David Spade as being like possibly like a Gemini because of the way he looks and his last name being Spade and the suit of spades being represented by the swords and air sign and Gemini and being a comedian. But he's like a Leo, sometimes Cancer. And then in his 11th house, he has Aquarius, which means really good at making friends. Maybe a little bit too good, partnerships where he's like known. But I think he's Joe Dirt and everything. He kind of escaped the like buddy comedy thing with him and Chris Farley. But still, I think he does Grown Ups. I think it's like Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, a bunch of SNL people. But so we get here in his 12th house where he has Pisces. He also has Chiron and Saturn. So this does say to me that, religious exploration, spiritual exploration, probably mediumship. He probably has every, like, after Chris Farley passed, every Hollywood medium trying to, get him to get a reading or something. But maybe he's really good, as, supposedly a Cancer, supposedly a Leo. Maybe he is really connected to, like, the astral realm and mediumship. And the reason why Cancer is the sign of like mediumship to me is because Teresa Caputo I think is a Cancer, and that's how I sort of think. And I have Cancer friends that look just like her with like crazy hair and nails and like being from the Northeast. So so him supposedly being a Leo, being a Cancer, he might have some type of connection to the spirit world. He might be a medium all on his own and not need the help of anybody. But Chiron says that he is helpful to leading people into spirituality and religion and things like that, but has difficulty with it in himself. He might start doing some online prayer group thing like Gwen Stefani and other artists as his popularity dwindles. But it also has a limitation for him, so maybe he doesn't know so much about the Bible either, or has made a lot of decisions and choices that would make him very like salacious as a god, like a preacher or a god type person. I mean, it's not like he was in like Animal House or Clerks 2 or anything, but maybe that's how he feels. But so thank you so much for joining me in this video about David Spade and his natal chart. I don't really have anybody to look up, I guess, at the end of it, but thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, sharing this with your best friend who is a Leo rising Aries, to call them a coward about how they are afraid to admit that they are a Cancer and they should just be their zodiac sign, and that cusping is not real. But cusping is real, and it's totally valid to be a cusping sign. Vedic astrology is totally valid. 13 sign systems, super valid. And one time I was doing a reading for somebody and I was talking about Orpheus and the snake bearer, and how it falls right in between Libra and Scorpio. And I was like, I think we can all find a Libra and Scorpio that we know that might be seen as like a snake or like a snake handler. So, even if it's not a Cancer, if he's not a Leo, this is what the chart would say if you were a Leo. So, thank you. I hope you enjoyed your beverages that I don't think I wished you to have earlier in the video, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.